I think I'm prepared to come out of my Hurricane Idalia rock today, although I'm still dealing with the aftermath. I'm ready to try and resume life as I used to know it pre-Idalia again, I think. And so for the sake of trying, I thought today we would do the next installment of our winter preparation series. And I think that today we should talk about supplemental heat in our coops and how to prevent frostbite. And listen, let's just start with this little tidbit of information. It is much easier for chickens to keep themselves warm throughout the winter than it is for them to cool themselves in the summer. Heat lamps are not necessary in a coop because, like I said, chickens are really equipped to warm themselves over winter. There are some other methods to heat the coop that I will share here in this video, but the number one reason is that those heat lamps are more dangerous than they're worth. And you'll see as winter approaches, you will start to begin to see posts all over Facebook or wherever of barn fires and of people's chicken coops and barns burning down as the result of heat lamps. And it happens for all kinds of different numbers of reasons. Sometimes those heat lamps are secured really well and there are just electrical malfunctions. There is just something about like chicken coops and dander and hay and winter and heat lamps that is just a recipe for danger. And so I always advise against heat lamps in the coop. It's always been my experience in general in the summer and the winter, regardless of the temperature, to allow chickens to acclimate as naturally as possible to whatever conditions are going on. Coming into winter, especially, we're about to see them going through molt, which is their natural process of releasing old feathers and growing in their nice, thick down coats, if you will, but feathers for winter to help them stay warm and to hold in heat. You know that I'm in Florida. Our winters are pretty mild, although last winter was pretty cold and we actually went through some hard freezes. And you can see my coops are all wide open. I don't even actually have like indoor coops. I have these big open runs. And so one thing that I'll do here is I'll cover the east, north, and west wall of my coops. I'll cover all of this with tarps. And I'm not so much doing it to trap heat in, I'm doing it to block the chickens from the wind. Sometimes I won't even cover like the bottom of the runs with the tarp. I'll just cover the top around the roost so that when they're roosting at night, they have somewhere to roost that's blocked from the cool, chilled air. That's always been fine for me in the North Florida climates that we have here. However, in areas where it does get colder and where you do have like chicken houses, chicken coops that your chickens nest in at night, here are a couple things to consider. We want those coops to stay dry and draft free, but also to have proper ventilation. If my run were enclosed, you could see up there where the ridge cap is, how there's that sort of space right there. That would be a good example of a way to ventilate a coop. Some people will opt for what's called the deep litter method in their coops, and that's where they'll throw pine bedding down, and instead of cleaning that bedding out every month, they'll allow the chickens to just defecate in there, and they'll keep throwing fresh pine bedding on top of the old bedding to like cover up the ammonia smell, and they'll use things like sweet PDZ and first Saturday lime in there to help keep the smell down. But essentially what's happening is that bedding is composting underneath there, and that compost releases heat and that helps to raise the temperature of the coop. That is a method that you're interested in. I would invite you to just do a little bit of further research before moving in that direction. But it is an option to more safely and more naturally raise heat in the coop if you believe it's necessary. I have seen other people opt to, like I'm saying with the tarps in my run, to cover the outer walls of their coop and the outer walls of their run in like tarp or plastic wrap to help hold heat in. But again, you're going to want to make sure that there is proper ventilation and some airflow throughout the coop, which is different than drafts. The reason that the ventilation is so important in the coop is that really one of the biggest cause of concerns throughout the winter time is frostbite. We'll really commonly see frostbite on the combs of our roosters. Pea-combed breeds like Americanas or breeds like Blue Lace Red Wyandottes are less prone to frostbite because they don't have those real tall, floppy, straight combs like your leg bars. But oftentimes what accidentally happens is there's not enough ventilation in coops. And while the chickens are roosting at night and they're breathing in the coops, all that moisture is getting locked inside the coops. And so that moisture coupled with the freezing temperature accidentally causes frostbite on the combs and wattles most frequently. That's the reason that ventilation is really important. I've also seen some people use methods such as putting Vaseline on the comb and wattles at night to try and help prevent frostbite. And look, it's not like the end of the world if your chickens do get frostbite, but it's going to likely cause permanent damage, and of course it's not comfortable for our birds. And so as always, an ounce of prevention is worth its weight in gold. Another little trick of the trade when it comes to heat, if we're concerned about raising the temperature of our coops and helping our chickens to raise body temperature to stay warm in the winter, is the times at which we feed. As our chickens are eating and their metabolism is active, they're digesting food, it's going to raise their body temperature slightly. One thing that I'll implement on those really cold days as the winter is I might throw some scratch grains out or a treat right before bed, or feed at night so that their metabolisms are working, digestion is working as they're in the coop. And whether you're feeding this way or not, what you might notice on those really cold nights is that when you go from outside of the coop to inside of the coop, you're going to notice that the temperature in there is slightly higher anyways, because the resting body temperature of our chickens is about 104 to 109 degrees. And when they're all roosting together, huddled up in that coop, and they're breathing and their metabolisms are going and they're just existing in that coop, just their presence in that enclosed space is going to raise heat a little bit. If we have chicks who we're growing out right now or we're planning on hatching in the next couple months, the rule of thumb is that those chicks should be safe outside in any temperature once they're fully feathered. I know that we say 6 weeks, and usually around 6 weeks chicks are fully feathered, but in the winter, barren of winter temperatures, I would say more like 10 to 12 weeks fully feathered. Chickens that look like this would be totally fine. Let me show you. These birds are fully feathered. These ones are a little bit older. These chicks as well are fully feathered. These guys are probably about 10 to 12 weeks here. This baby is not fully feathered. This baby is in his awkward teenage phase, which I swear blue lace red Wyandottes are the worst about. But I suspect, regardless of where you're at in the country and what the climate is like, you're gonna find that winter is much harder on us as a chicken keeper than it is on our birds. I even think birds tend to be healthier in the winters. Things like coccidia, internal parasites don't seem to be as prevalent. And really, this is a good season where if you wanted to treat preventatively for things like mice, lice, internal parasites, where you wanted to use something like ivermectin where there's an egg withdrawal period, over the winter when the chickens really are scaled back on laying because those daylight hours are fewer, this is a good time to do things like that. It really seems that in general, the cold is less stressful on our chickens than the heat and humidity of the summer.